So what is our most common perspective mistake? I think it's one that we see in this drawing. And this is a drawing I've traced from a drawing I found online. At a glance, it works well. But if we look at it for a greater length of time, there's something not quite right. Something a little unsettling about this wall. So what is the problem and how do we avoid it when we draw? So we'll look at the problem now, and then in a moment, I'll redraw this section of the building and show you how I would go about it to avoid making the same mistake. The problem lies in these angles on this wall. They just don't line up the way they should. So let's make it a little more obvious what's happening. The two really important lines in perspective are the two extremes, the bottommost line and the topmost line. In perspective, they should meet up on eye level. And eye level is the level of the eyes of the person looking at the scene, or quite possibly the level of the camera if we're looking at a photo. All of these lines should intersect that point. Let's see if that's what happens. And here is our original contact point. All these lines approximately are in the right place, which is why the side of the wall approximately looks okay. But the closer the vanishing point is to the actual building, the more important it is that the lines actually do meet up. The closer the vanishing point is to the actual building, the more important it is that all the horizontal lines or alignments on this side of the building are accurate. It's not as obvious on this side of the building because the vanishing point is a long way to the left. And so there's a little more room here for inaccuracy without it being obvious. Let me redraw this wall now more correctly, and then I'm going to show you a technique I use to increase the accuracy of my drawings with this sort of perspective involved. Here we have the same outline, but we need to add these lines. It's important that we get a sense of where these lines will join. So I try to visualize the spot where this will be. And maybe even put a dot where I think it's going to be. And then I can use my pen to check the accuracy of that dot. Not as accurate as I would have hoped. There. So this is the point now where I want all my lines to join up. So I visualize that. Again. If I get a sense of where this wall is, it makes it easier then, because I can do a mark where the wall is going to be intersected by the horizontal line. That gives me my approximate divisions. Now I need to add the windows on the ground floor. Tops of these windows will align with that vanishing point. Same up here, and again I need to make sure that these windows line up. And now we have the perspective in place. And this works more naturally to our perception than this one, because rather than a scattergun accuracy, our lines line up with more careful focus. And this also helps us position people who may be in the scene better. That's eye level. Then any people we have in our scene are going to have a scale that fits comfortably wherever they are in relation to the building, because we know where their head's going to be. But if our eye level is out of place, then it can be harder to get a realistic looking scale where some figures appear either too large or too small. What's the technique I use? I realise that I've worked out a little trick that I use to help me get these angles more accurate. Let me show it to you. I visualise a fan. The sections of the fan don't have to be equal. In fact, they almost certainly won't be. But just as in a fan, the strips that separate the various parts of the fan to enable it to fold and to slide together all meet at one point where we hold it. And the fan is helpful because it defines all the horizontal lines I'm going to need in my drawing. And at any point, if I need another line, I just fit it between the arms of the fan I've already drawn. And what we can see is that none of these lines are parallel. They all slightly move closer together the more they move towards the vanishing point. And one of the things that we often see when the perspective is not quite right is that we have lines which are closer to being parallel than not. So I'm always visualizing this fan. This is the pattern that I need to see in the perspective of my drawing as I draw it. And I find perspective is most easily done when I think of the patterns that it forms. And I have other videos that talk about that in more detail. I always feel that when the perspective's not quite right, it makes looking at the drawing something like listening to a song where the singer can't quite hit the right notes all the time. That even though there's a lot that's working correct, it just ends up not being something that we can relax with because there's something not quite right. So let's focus on creating our fan with our perspective lines, ensuring that all our horizontal lines move closer together the closer they get to the vanishing point, and that we avoid drawing parallel lines, because if we draw some lines that don't come together quickly enough, then we will have to then draw some lines that come together too quickly and create a more obvious distortion. So let's give it a go. I hope you have fun. I'm Stephen Travers. If you've enjoyed this, then have a look at some of my other videos, maybe even subscribe and hit notifications so that you don't miss out when there's a new video. I'll see you next time. Bye.